Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Multiple Sclerosis for Dummies, 2nd edition, by Rosalind Kalb, Ph.D., Barbara Giesser, M.D., and Kathleen Costello, A.N.P. B.C. Narrated by Exie Sands. Forward. I had just started law school at the University of Virginia when my sister called and asked if she could visit me in Charlottesville. She had something to tell me. It was the fall of 1983, and I had moved from Richmond to begin 3 years at UVA trying to learn what it was that lawyers actually did. Back then, my sister was a newspaper reporter. When I was in college, I went with her on some of her reporting beats. She attended town council meetings and spoke with citizens gathering to query their elected representative. She was the ultimate professional. To her, the truth was paramount. So when she came to UVA, I expected her to tell me that she had taken another job at another newspaper. I had always assumed that my sister would end up working for the Washington Post, or maybe even the New York Times. We started walking around campus. She talked, but quite frankly, all I could think about was my new life. I wanted to tell her about what I was doing, feeling, thinking. She kept speaking quietly, and I kept nodding, and my mind kept wandering to what I would say when she had finished. But then I focused, something I should have done when she first started speaking. "I have MS," she said. In an instant, UVA and my law career were forgotten. I sat down next to her. I looked at her closely. She didn't look sick. I remember we used to collect money for the Jerry Lewis telethon when we were kids, but that was muscular dystrophy. Those kids all looked desperately ill. "What are the doctors going to do?" I asked her. "What they can," she replied. She paused. "It's chronic," she added. "There is no cure. I'll have it for the rest of my life." My sister's life had changed, and that day so had mine. I soon discovered that so much misinformation is out there about MS. Although it's still one of the most misdiagnosed diseases, more worthy and helpful information sources are available. Multiple Sclerosis for Dummies, 2nd edition, is one of them. It helps to empower those individuals who have MS, as well as their family, friends, and other members of their support team. It helps one navigate the field of chronic illness, making complex issues less so, helping to sort, organize, and make comprehensible so much that is disorganized and incomprehensible about MS. Yet Multiple Sclerosis for Dummies, 2nd edition, is not simply a book on the disease. It is a tool with which to live, offering practical advice, anecdotal experiences, humor, and most importantly of all, hope. It shows that no one with MS is alone. A broad community exists of those individuals with MS and a broader support group composed of family, friends, and healthcare professionals. No one book can be a cure-all or the only source one turns to. Yet this book is also a gateway to many other sources of information and provides those resources throughout its chapters. It can lead folks to where they need to go in seeking help, understanding, and even an opportunity to smile or laugh. As an author, I can tell you that books make great friends. For those with MS, this book will not only make a great friend, it will also stay with you for the long haul. You can turn to it again and again for knowledge, comfort, and a way to help you or your loved one control the disease instead of the other way around. No one can say that researchers are winning the war against MS yet, and it continues to challenge and at times overwhelm the people it affects, along with their families and friends. But what MS can't do is unilaterally rob people of their spirit to fight it and to live life on their terms, despite changes in the brain and body. The human spirit is wonderfully resilient. In fact, it may be the most powerful defense mechanism any of us has. Multiple Sclerosis for Dummies, 2nd edition, is a terrific resource to have at one's side. It can lift the fog of an inscrutable disease, bring a smile to one's face when it is desperately needed, and bring hope when things look hopeless. A lot of power is packed into the book. I encourage anyone with MS, their family, and friends to use it. David Baldacci. Introduction. Being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, MS, is definitely a bummer, but living with it doesn't have to be. This book is all about how to live your life with MS without making a full-time job of it. After diving in, you'll be more informed and more prepared, no matter how your MS behaves. If you've never heard of MS before, and you want to know what may be in store, this book is definitely for you. You also want to take a gander through this book if all you've ever heard about MS is the bad stuff. We suggest this because the fact is you've probably met several people at work, at the gym, or in your neighborhood who have MS, and you didn't even know it. And even if the people you happen to know with MS don't seem to have a symptom or care in the world, you now have another good reason to keep listening. Everyone's MS is different, and no one can predict exactly what yours will be like. The three of us, a neurologist, a nurse, and a psychologist, have worked with and learned from people with MS for a total of 88 years, if you add our careers together end to end. We wrote this book as a team effort so we could send a loud and clear message that you're not alone. Health professionals trained in neurology, nursing, psychology, rehabilitation medicine, and the variety of other disciplines, as well as voluntary organizations such as the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, are ready to help you every step of the way. About this book. Don't worry, in this second edition of Multiple Sclerosis for Dummies, we're not going to try to tell you everything there is to know about MS. Instead, we only give you what you need in order to make educated choices and comfortable decisions, including new and updated info about medications to slow disease progression and manage MS symptoms, recent and anticipated changes in healthcare reform in the United States, and exciting news on the research front. We provide lots of information that's easy to access and easy to swallow regarding what happens in MS, what kinds of symptoms it can cause, how it can affect your life at home and at work, what you can do to feel and function up to snuff, and how you can protect yourself and your family against the long-term unpredictability of the disease. We also throw in useful tips, introduce you to the members of your healthcare team, and point you in the direction of a growing array of useful resources. And we even promise to make you chuckle once or twice along the way. Feel free to pick and choose what you want to listen to. You don't have to take a start-to-finish approach if you're more comfortable with a hop, skip, and jump style. Each chapter tackles a different aspect of living with MS so that you can zero in on the stuff that's most relevant to you. Conventions used in this book. We use the following conventions throughout the audiobook to make things consistent and easy to understand. Because most people with MS receive their MS-related care from a neurologist, a physician who specializes in the diagnosis and treatment of diseases of the nervous system, we use the terms neurologist, doctor, and physician interchangeably whenever we're referring to the person who's treating your MS. When we're talking about other medical specialists, such as internists, family practice doctors, urologists, gynecologists, physiatrists, psychiatrists, we refer to them by their specialty titles. We talk a lot about medications in this book, which you may or may not ever need. In case you do, we always give the brand name first because that's the one you're most likely to see in advertisements or hear other people talk about, followed by the chemical name. What you're not to hear. Even though we poured heart and soul into every section of this book, we know that you won't want to listen to it all, and most likely you won't need to. So we make it easy for you to identify skippable material by sticking it into sidebars. This is the stuff that's interesting and related to the topic at hand, but not essential for your health and well-being. Foolish assumptions. Even though no two people have MS in exactly the same way, we assume that you, our listeners, still have quite a few things in common. We've written this book with these thoughts about you in mind. You have MS, or care about someone who does. However much you already know about MS, you want to know more, in language that's easy to access and easy to understand. You're looking for ways to manage your MS and the symptoms it can cause. You want to be healthy, active, and productive in spite of whatever challenges MS is throwing your way. You wish you had a crystal ball, but you're willing to settle for some helpful suggestions on how to deal with the unpredictability of MS. How this book is organized. This book is divided into 6 parts to help you gather all the information you need about MS. However, every part can stand alone, so you don't have to listen to one before another. The following is a rundown of the 6 parts. Part 1. When MS becomes part of your life. Whether MS has entered your life with a bang or a whimper, you need to know what it's all about. So, in this part, we fill you in on the basic facts as well as the big mysteries that remain to be solved. We show you the usual steps involved in getting a diagnosis and suggest ways to handle any reactions that you may have during those early days, as well as those that may crop up as the realities of the disease begin to sink in. This part also gives you good ideas on how to begin making room in your life for a chronic, unpredictable illness without giving it more attention than it needs. It's always good to know that you don't have to deal with tough stuff on your own, so in this part we also spend some time introducing you to the healthcare professionals who are going to help you manage your MS. Part 2. Taking charge of your MS. The best way to feel more confident in the face of any new challenge is to come up with a game plan. And you're in luck because this part of the book is designed to do just that. It helps you get started with the planning process and gives you tips on how to work with your healthcare team to make the treatment choices that best meet your needs. Each chapter describes a part of the MS treatment package, including all the immediate and longer-term strategies for slowing disease activity, dealing with pesky relapses, and managing symptoms. We talk about the importance of early treatment and describe each of the available options in detail. And we zero in on ways to manage the physical symptoms that can pop up along the way, as well as the ones that can mess with your head, such as mood changes and problems with memory and thinking. Alternative medicine is a hot topic for people with MS, so in this part we also give you pointers on how to sift through the available products and services to find those that are safe and effective for people with MS. And we fill you in on the latest information about a controversial topic in the MS world: chronic cerebrospinal venous insufficiency, CCSVI. Part 3. Staying healthy and feeling well. You can be healthy with MS. In fact, the healthier you are, the better you're going to feel. So this part is all about how to take care of yourself with a healthy, balanced diet, the right kind of exercise, restful sleep, and some good stress management strategies. Throughout the chapters of this part, we emphasize the importance of looking beyond your MS or your family member's MS to develop an overall wellness plan involving regular checkups by your family doctor and dentist and the preventative health screens recommended for your age group. In this part, we also give you an idea of what to do when your MS isn't behaving very nicely. When the disease progresses in spite of available treatments, it's important to know how to manage your symptoms, avoid messy complications, and keep your life on track. Part 4. Managing lifestyle issues. The key to coping well with your MS is finding ways to fit it into your life. So in this part, we begin with a reminder that people's responses to your MS depend in large part on how you present it to them. We then go on to give you strategies for helping others understand what your MS is all about. We also include a chapter that shows how to make MS part of the family. This chapter describes the ways in which families are affected when someone they love gets MS, and it also shares tips to help family members communicate and problem solve more comfortably. Because MS is diagnosed most often during early adulthood, when people are busy starting or adding to their families, this part fills you in on all the good news for prospective parents. Yes, people with MS can have happy, healthy kids. It gives you lots of parenting tips to help you deal with those bundles of joy that quickly grow into toddlers and teens. Part 5. Creating your safety nets. The hallmark of MS is its unpredictability. Because everyone's MS is different and no one has a crystal ball, anxiety about the future is pretty common. To reduce that anxiety as much as possible, this part is all about making sure that you're armed and ready to deal with whatever comes along. We give you tips on how to stay in the workforce as long as you're interested and able, strategies for getting and maintaining insurance coverage, and recommendations for how to plan effectively for the unpredictable future. When you're living with MS, developing these kinds of safety nets can help you feel less vulnerable and more in control. Part 6. The part of tens. In this part, we give you key information in a handy top 10 format. One chapter lists the mistaken notions about MS that you can finally put to rest, and another highlights 10 intriguing areas of MS research. We top off this part with 10 strategies to make traveling with MS as trouble-free as possible. Icons used in this book. To make this book easier and simpler to use, we include some icons that can help you pick out the key ideas and points of information throughout the book. Tip: this icon highlights shortcuts that help you conserve valuable resources such as energy, time, and money. Remember, this icon tells you that the information that follows is essential and that you should keep it in mind as you deal with your MS. Warning: this icon flags dangers to your health, safety, or general well-being. Call a pro: this icon reminds you when it's time to check in with your neurologist or another specialist on your healthcare team. Where to go from here? This book is organized so that all you need to do is shut your eyes and point in order to find complete information about one aspect of MS or another. If you prefer the eyes open method but aren't sure where you want to start, we recommend Part 1. It gives you basic info about MS and how it's diagnosed, as well as some tips for sorting out all of the feelings that an MS diagnosis can stir up. If you've already been there and done that, you may want to check out specific treatment strategies in Part 2, or discover ways to feel more bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in Part 3. If you're wondering how MS may affect your relationships with the important people in your life, you can focus on Part 4. And if you're someone who likes to get all your ducks in a row from the get-go, and even if you're not, you can check out Part 5 for suggestions on how to feel securely prepared in spite of the unpredictability of MS. No matter where you choose to begin now. Make it your priority to educate yourself about MS and the strategies you and your family members can use to live well in spite of it. Part 1. When MS becomes part of your life. In this part, we're guessing that multiple sclerosis, MS, has recently become part of your life. Either you or someone you care about has been diagnosed with MS, and you're wondering what it's all about. This part gives you the big picture, starting with an overview of what doctors know and don't know about this chronic, unpredictable disease, and what you can do to live comfortably and productively in spite of it. The good news is that you aren't ever alone in your efforts to overcome the challenges of MS. Your healthcare team, which we introduced to you in this part, will always be right beside you. Chapter 1. Meeting MS face-to-face. In this chapter, exploring how MS affects your body, determining what triggers MS, recognizing the uniqueness of your MS, taking a peek at the available MS treatments, understanding the impact of MS on your family and work life, gearing up to keep your life on track. Because you've picked up this book, we're assuming that your doctor has delivered the news that you have multiple sclerosis, MS, or perhaps he or she said that you may have this disease or that you probably have this disease, which makes you wonder why you can't get a clear answer. Whether you got the news yesterday or several months ago, you're probably trying to figure out what it means for you, for your future, and for your family. In other words, you have about a zillion questions about what's in store. Chances are the answers you've received so far haven't been all that satisfying, mostly because MS still can't be cured. No one knows what causes it, and no doctor can predict with any certainty how your MS is going to behave in the future. However, the good news is that the treatment options are expanding, and people with MS are busy getting on with their lives, and you will too. In this chapter, which is an introduction to MS and an overview of what we cover in the rest of the book, we fill you in on the available MS info, including what scientists have been able to discover about the workings of this disease, and what questions remain to be answered. We explain why your MS is different from everyone else's, and we introduce you to the treatment strategies that can help you manage your MS. Finally, we glance at the ways that MS can affect life at home and at work, and we show you what you can do to ensure the best possible quality of life for you and the people you love. Introducing the roles your immune and nervous systems play in MS. Surprise! Even though MS is described as the most common neurologic disorder diagnosed in young adults, the problem doesn't appear to originate with the nervous system. Instead, decades of research have pointed to the body's immune system as the culprit. Some kind of malfunction in the immune system interferes with the functioning of the body's nervous system, resulting in the symptoms commonly associated with MS. The current thinking is that the glitch is an autoimmune problem, which basically means that your body is mistakenly destroying some of its own healthy tissues and cells. But this thinking has yet to be proven. We explain the autoimmune process in the section What Happens in MS later in the chapter, but for now, understanding how the immune system is supposed to work when it's healthy is important. The immune system, your body's frontline defender. The immune system, which is a complex network of glands, tissues, and circulating cells, is your body's frontline defense in the fight against infection by viruses, bacteria, and other bad guys. When confronted with an infection, the immune system gears up to neutralize the foreign invader and make you healthy again. Remember, in order for your immune system to do its job properly, it has to be able to distinguish between the good guys, the cells, tissues, and organs that make up your body, and the bad guys, any foreign invader, such as a virus or a bacteria that doesn't share your genes. And get this, the immune system is so powerful that it could reject a pregnant woman's developing fetus, which shares only some of her genes, if the hormones of pregnancy didn't suppress her immune system. Check out Chapter 16 to read more about how pregnancy hormones appear to affect MS. The nervous system, your body's CEO. The nervous system, which controls all bodily functions, is made up of neurons, each of which consists of a cell body and its long extension, the axon. And many axons are covered by a protective or insulating coating called myelin. The neurons are gathered into small and large-sized bundles called nerves. The system is basically divided into two parts. The central nervous system, CNS, which consists of the brain, spinal cord, and optic nerves, is the target of the damage done in MS. The peripheral nervous system, PNS, includes the branching network of nerves and axons that connects the CNS to muscles, sensory organs, and glands in the rest of the body. Remember, the nervous system conducts 4 basic kinds of electrical signals throughout the body. Motor signals. These signals, which move from the CNS through the PNS and to muscles and other organs, control movement, strength, and other bodily functions. Sensory signals. These signals go back to the CNS from the eyes, ears, skin, and other sensory organs, and they provide information about the environment from those organs. Autonomic signals. These signals go to your GI system, your bladder, your sexual organs, and other parts of the body that often act without conscious control. Integrative signals. These signals travel from nerve cell to nerve cell within the nervous system and are thought to be responsible for many cognitive functions such as thinking and memory. Check out Chapter 9 for information about cognitive changes in MS. These electrical signals are like the current in an electrical wire. When everything is working fine, they travel long distances along the myelin-covered axons in the CNS, jumping from one axon to another as needed. The myelin, like the rubber or plastic insulation around an electrical wire, is what helps speed the electrical signals on their journey and smooths out any bumps along the way. What happens in MS? After you understand the role of the immune system and the nervous system, you can begin to understand how MS affects them. In autoimmune diseases like MS and rheumatoid arthritis, myasthenia gravis, and type 1 diabetes, among others, the immune system loses the ability to distinguish the good guys from the bad guys, and so it starts attacking the normal tissues in the body. In MS, this autoimmune response targets the myelin coating around the axons in the CNS, the axons themselves, and the cells that produce the myelin, called oligodendrocytes. Remember, the autoimmune attack happens because of a breakdown in the blood-brain barrier, BBB, which allows immune cells that have been living harmlessly in your blood to travel into your CNS to attack the myelin and axons, resulting in the symptoms associated with MS. The autoimmune process in MS follows these steps. 1. The inflammation that occurs during an MS relapse, also called an attack or exacerbation, damages the BBB, allowing the movement of immune cells into the CNS. Skip to Chapter 6 for more info about MS relapses. 2. Toxic substances are released into the CNS, which can increase inflammation and result in the breakdown of myelin in a process called demyelination, and the axons, sometimes even affecting the nerve cell bodies. 3. Nervous system cells called astrocytes move into the locations where the damage has occurred, and they form scar tissue, giving rise to the name multiple sclerosis, which means multiple scars. Remember, The results of the autoimmune process aren't all that pretty. The inflammation can cause swelling, which interferes with the conduction of signals in the nervous system. Demyelination results in a loss of insulation around the neuron's axons, which slows or interrupts nervous system conduction. And finally, the axons can be broken, a process referred to as axonal loss, which breaks the connections between the nervous system and parts of the body. This whole process results in the symptoms that we describe in chapters 7, 8, and 9. Flip to chapter 6 to read about the treatments that can reduce the inflammation and slow the destructive process. Taking advantage of the body's natural healing process. The body has a natural capacity to heal some of the damage caused by MS. For example, partial healing occurs following each MS relapse. Here's how it works. The inflammation that occurs during an MS relapse causes edema, the accumulation of fluids at the site of the damaged myelin. Picture what happens when you sprain your ankle. Edema results in swelling that compresses the myelin-coated axons and interferes with the transmission of nerve signals. As the inflammation and swelling disappear and the relapse comes to an end, some of the axons begin to decompress and are able to function normally again. The reduction of inflammation can happen through a natural healing process, or can sometimes be speeded up with corticosteroid medications, which you can read about in Chapter 6. In addition, the myelin coating that has been damaged by the inflammation has some ability, but not a whole lot, to heal or regenerate. As long as the axon itself remains intact, the natural regeneration of myelin can smooth out the conduction of nerve impulses and result in some amount of improvement of symptoms over time. Check out the National MS Society website at nationalmssociety.org/myelin for more information on myelin and current research efforts to stimulate this natural healing process. Remember, after the nerve fiber itself has been damaged or severed and scar tissue has formed, healing is much more difficult. Unfortunately, doctors haven't yet found a way to repair damaged axons or to remove the scars. Researchers are focusing a lot of attention on how to promote this kind of repair, and this is precisely where stem cell research may be most relevant in MS. To read about stem cells and their potential value in the treatment of MS, go to nationalmssociety.org/stem cell. Exploring possible MS triggers. Assuming that MS is, in fact, an autoimmune disease, figuring out what actually triggers the immune system's attack on the nervous system is important. Most scientists agree that no single virus or bacterium causes MS all by itself. They have also concluded that no single thing in the environment or in a person's diet is directly responsible for the disease. Remember, currently, scientists believe that the disease is caused by a combination of several factors, including gender, racial or ethnic, geographic, genetic, and lifestyle factors that interact with an infectious trigger of some kind, for example, one or more viruses or bacteria, to stimulate the autoimmune process. This means that when a person with a genetic susceptibility to MS meets up with the environmental trigger or triggers, his or her immune system overreacts in a way that sets off the abnormal autoimmune process. This sounds simple enough, but the question of why some people get MS and others don't remains one of the great mysteries of this disease. Solving this mystery is important because identifying the factors that make some people susceptible to MS and others not would help scientists figure out the cause of MS. And identifying the cause would make it a whole lot easier to find more effective treatment and, eventually, a cure. Gender clues. The fact that MS doesn't occur equally in women and men has long piqued the curiosity of scientists and physicians. It turns out that some interesting differences exist between the sexes, in regard to MS, that is, that may provide important clues to the cause of MS. MS is 2 to 3 times more common in women than in men. However, prior to the onset of puberty, boys are as likely to get MS as girls. Check out Chapter 15 for more info about MS in kids. Men tend to develop MS at a later age than women do, and they're more likely than women to be diagnosed with primary progressive MS. You can read more about the disease courses in the section distinguishing the 4 disease types later in the chapter. Ethnic or racial clues. MS isn't unique to one racial or ethnic group, but certain groups are much more susceptible than others. Scientists are using the following clues to help themselves understand the genetic and environmental factors that may be causing these group differences.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?